So, some shit went down today. I recorded 3 whole things, probably about an hour and a half worth of audio. And only when I got to the end of it did I realize that my microphone had been turned all the way up. So, the sound of it was driving me completely insane as I tried to listen back through it. So kids, this is why you always check your recording level before you start recording. Because nothing is ever easy. So, that being said, I'm gonna reread the stuff that I read today. On the bright side, my voice is nice and warmed up. And on the other bright side, I also already know what I'm doing. So, yeah, it's good. So that's enough of an introduction from me. I'm gonna read the sci-fi story. Yay, sci-fi story. And it'll be good. It's a good segment, and you will like it. God damn it. So, here we go. The main server bank of the National Department of Computer Sciences was colloquially known as the Tangle, and not facetiously. It was a monstrous room, crisscrossed with thousands of wires and cables that connected to the enormous, barrel-shaped router that descended from the ceiling. Huge ducts pumped frigid air onto the hard drives and the processors, but the room was still stifling. Daniel could feel sweat beading on his forehead the moment the elevator door opened and the wave of silicon-scented heat washed over his face. There was a sign over the triple-locked, reinforced steel gate to the main bank that read, "This facility has been accident-free for 58 days." That might have reassured Daniel had the last accident not resulted in the deaths of no less than 6 coders and engineers. Perched above the sign was a security camera. Daniel waved to it as he approached. The first lock on the gate clicked, and its light turned green. He waved his ID chip in front of the scanner. The second light turned green. He pressed his thumb to the dual scanner pulse reader and held it there for 10 long seconds. The last lock clicked, and the gate opened. Daniel bounced on his toes as he waited the mandatory 3 seconds before stepping in. Behind him, the gate closed and locked. He would have to go through the same procedure to get back out of the Tangle, although 57 days ago, management had created a protocol that would unlock the gate in 10 seconds flat, no hassle, should there be an emergency. In Daniel's opinion, 10 seconds was far too long, since according to the reports he'd had to proofread, the nitrogen leak had A. Killed the team of 6 in a little under 2 minutes, and B. Gone totally unnoticed until coders started passing out and quietly suffocating on the floor, by which time the others were too woozy from hypoxia to find the gate, much less get themselves through it. Nevertheless, the people from Health and Safety had declared the Tangle safe for work again, once the new emergency exit strategy had been put in place, along with the brand new meters placed strategically around the walls that measured the air's oxygen content. If it dropped below 19%, alarms would go off and the entire area would be evacuated immediately. That was still too small a margin for Daniel's liking, although at the moment they all read a healthy 21%. He deposited his laptop in the cubby with his name on it and ventured into the main body of the Tangle, gently brushing the wires out of his way. His pace slowed as he walked past one of the air ducts, enjoying the feel of the cool air washing over him, but he didn't stop walking. Management had eyes in every nook and cranny of the Tangle, and Suzanne King was in a foul mood that morning, even for her. If she happened to check in on him and saw him standing still, he would be fired before he even had time to draw a protesting breath. When he reached the main barrel of the Tangle, he beelined for the aluminum ladder bolted to its side and began climbing. At around 20 feet off the ground, there was a small platform and a simplistic console. Daniel logged in with a swipe of his ID chip and a quick passcode. Although the codes changed daily, there were only 16 of them, used in rotation, and he had not only the codes but their reordering algorithm memorized. Instead of welcoming him, the monitor displayed lines upon lines of text. the fruits of yesterday's labor. It wasn't that he didn't know which drive was buggy, although that had taken a week or so of figuring out. It was that he had to find the damn thing in the Tangle. So far, he'd discovered a lot of places it wasn't, but determining the physical location of a single hard drive in a 3-acre jungle of hard drives was no easy task. At one time, the Tangle had been organized, but 30 years of clever fixes and convenient rearrangements by coders and engineers had turned it into an ungodly mess. Daniel cracked his knuckles and began, once again, querying the database. He already knew where the drive was supposed to be. It had originally been located on the west side of the room, close to the top, with the other west sector weather regulators. Unfortunately, at some time in the past, those drives had been moved and replaced with ones controlling geosynchronous communications satellites. When Daniel had gone looking in the area of satellite-related drives, he had found ones dealing with the city's internet, and so on and so forth, following a ridiculous breadcrumb trail all over the Tangle until he was about ready to pull his hair out. Fortunately, 5 o'clock had come before he'd actually taken a sledgehammer to the machine, and he'd clocked out with his sanity intact. He started back where he'd left off, a set of monorail route planners where the city's security camera protocols were supposed to be stored. When he looked in the area where route planning was supposed to take place, he found instead, after many long minutes of sifting through nigh indecipherable code, the Automatic Butler Master Program. The temptation to alter the code to make them only speak Turkish was nearly irresistible. At long last, after many hours of squinting, head-scratching, sweating, and looking over his shoulder at the nearest oxygen monitor, Daniel found the corrupted drive, shifted only 2 rows down from where it was supposed to be. He climbed down the ladder, grumbling, and kicked the barrel once his feet touched the ground. He moved to the door and went through the little security dance all over again to get the door unlocked. Stepping into the blissfully cool elevator, he breathed again, as though he had been suffocating for his entire time down in the Tangle. Back on the 35th floor, the cubicles had filled with coders. Most were working on bug fixes and software updates, but a lucky few had license to pursue their own projects. The result was a room full of people who rarely talked to one another, filled with the sound of clacking keys, clicking mice, and the scratchy sound of headphones turned up too loud. Daniel wound his way back to the communications head office, informed Suzanne King of the location of the buggy drive, and was dismissed quickly. He didn't dare ask about the promised raise, lest it be snatched from him. He'd know in a week when his next paycheck came in. Upon re-entering the floor, his stomach growled discontentedly. It occurred to him that he hadn't eaten in roughly 6 hours. He headed back towards the elevator, pausing briefly at the last desk before it. "Brian, you taken your lunch break yet?" he asked, leaning on his coworker's desk. Brian looked up, bleary-eyed. "Huh? Oh, no. Is it lunchtime?" Daniel raised his eyebrows. "It's 2 o'clock. "Oh," said Brian, and peered at his computer. "I guess I lost track of time." "How long have you been here, Brian?" he inquired. Well, I remember checking in with security around 9 p.m.? No. Morning. I remember because she had her damn styrofoam coffee. Angie only ever works regular hours." "What day was that, Brian?" Daniel was almost enjoying this. It wasn't that he'd never stayed up for unwise amounts of time working on a project. Just last year, his final year of college, he'd spent 50 hours straight working on a single program. He'd subsequently gotten the best day's sleep of his life. "Day? It, must have been Thursday. What's with the Inquisition?" Daniel grinned. "Brian, right now, this very second, it is 2:15 p.m. and 17 seconds on Friday." "What?" Brian cried. "I've been here all night? No wonder the screen's blurry." "Happens. There's a new falafel place on New Delaware. Let's go there. I gotta get out of this building before I suffocate. You should too. Go home and sleep or something. Sleep when you're dead. The purple-haired coder locked down his computer and got to his feet, stretching grandly. Is it cheap? He asked. Probably not, Minami told me about it. Then again, it's on New Delaware, so who knows. Together they headed for the elevator. How long do you think it'll take for the hardware guys to fix the bug? Brian pressed the 1F button and the doors slid closed. Jump! He cried. Both men leapt into the air as the elevator rushed downwards, their heads almost brushing the ceiling. My money's on 6 hours, but spread out over 2 days. Cheating, Daniel accused. That's 2 guesses, not 1. It's not cheating, it's self-limiting, Brian objected. It's a more specific guess than you'll get from anyone else. 6 man-hours, 2 days. $20. Big spender, the other commented, rolling his eyes. I'm calling it at 3 days. No guesses to the man-hours. That's if they don't get killed working in the Tangle. Brian sighed. Daniel, it's been nearly 2 months. The system works, man. Nobody's gonna get killed. Bet you $20, Daniel retorted. $20 says someone goes to the hospital within the next month. Gonna lose a lot of money, Brian informed him. Heavy stance. They both spread their feet shoulder-width apart and bent their knees slightly as the elevator began its deceleration. Moments later, the elevator dinged and the doors opened. As the two stepped out, Daniel said, I really don't think heavy stance is necessary. You think that, Brian replied, but one day you'll be coming down from the 100th floor and pass out. The voice of experience. I have low blood pressure. New Delaware was 3 blocks from the computer sciences building, in the midst of the downtown cluster of state-named streets. Occasionally, Daniel wondered what had happened to old Delaware, but had never actually bothered to look it up. He asked Brian, who replied, It's a thing they did when converting from asphalt, about 70 years ago. You know, when the whole gas thing happened? Delaware Street was one of the first to get converted, and they renamed it when they did. They did that with the first few, and then they realized it was going to happen to all the streets. They stopped renaming them. Daniel squinted at him. You're pulling this out of your ass, aren't you? He said flatly. Brian shrugged. I mean, it makes sense. It's just not necessarily true. World according to Brian. Doesn't have to be true so long as it makes sense. Most people take the opposite view. Most people are Indian, Brian retorted. Within a few minutes, they found themselves on New Delaware Street. It was a wide avenue, lined with shops old enough that they weren't made of plastic. The falafel place was easy enough to find, by the smell if nothing else. Directly across the street from it was an open-front cyber cafe, with a sign in the window that read, Yes, we have plugs. Plugs? Said Brian. What, do they expect you to eat them? Hate to break it to them, but that's not the general purpose of a cyber cafe. Daniel rolled his eyes. They're cyborg-friendly. It's tough to find a place to plug in anywhere downtown. People have this weird idea that people's arms are going to turn into machine guns and blast the place all to hell. Nobody thinks that, Brian replied offhandedly. Yes, Daniel told him. They do. Brian took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Man, I'm tired. Hey, what's falafel anyway? Daniel shrugged. It's like stuff wrapped in breadcrumbs and fried. He reconsidered his explanation. Tasty. That's what it is. Tasty. Replacing his thick glasses, Brian peered at the menu. And cheap. Nice. I'm surprised Her Highness deigned to eat here. Bristling, Daniel retorted, She has a name, Brian. The other raised his hands, palms out. Okay. Sorry, dude. Daniel sighed. No, it's my bad. You know what being in the Tangle does to me. Brian clapped him on the shoulder. Dude, anyone would be a little afraid after spending like 4 hours down there. 5. Jesus. Brian stepped up to the counter and said, Hey, so what's the most food I can get for the least money? The man behind the counter raised his thick eyebrow. That would be the lunch special, I think. I don't know for certain, though. I can check. It's okay, Daniel told the man. He's already running the numbers. He just asks to buy himself a few extra seconds. Yeah, okay, give me the lunch special, Brian said. The man prodded at his cash register's laser keyboard a few times. Your drink? he asked. Something with a lot of sugar and a lot of caffeine. Daniel eased Brian out of the way, saying, Yeah, okay, pay the man and go find a table. He turned to the cashier after Brian had paid and said, I'm sorry about him. He hasn't slept in like 2 days. Is there any way you could, I don't know, make sure whatever drink he gets isn't caffeinated? He won't notice. The man smiled, his white teeth gleaming in contrast to his dark skin. Coders, eh? I thought you had that look about you. I think I can accommodate. What can I get for you, sir? Yeah, I guess I'll just get the same as him. He handed the cashier his credit card. Rodriguez? He said, an expression of concern on his face. Daniel Rodriguez? That's me, Daniel said, antsy. Is there a problem? The concerned expression grew grim, and the man said, Wait here just a moment, sir. He vanished into the back. After a brief bout of indecipherable yelling, he returned. There was a message left for you, sir. She didn't leave a name. He handed over a cream-colored envelope and Daniel's credit card. Have a nice day, sir. But I haven't paid, Daniel objected. The man glanced to either side, then leaned forward, murmuring, This one is on the house. I do not want any proof that you have been here. The envelope was not sealed, Mr. Rodriguez, and I am not a stupid man. Take your seat, eat your food, and please do not come back here again. Have a nice day. Daniel wandered away from the register and found Brian slumped over a window table, fast asleep and drooling. He kicked him. Not sleeping, Brian cried, jerking upright in a firework of purple hair. You were drooling, Daniel told him, sitting down. Cover blown. Dang it, said Brian, wiping his mouth on his jacket sleeve. Betrayed by my own body. Quietly, Daniel folded the envelope and put it in his pocket. It warranted investigation, but not here, and certainly not in front of Brian. What have you been working on, anyway? He asked. This and that, Brian answered. I don't know, Daniel asserted. Please inform me. Brian sighed. Suzanne's letting me have my own project, he said. You lucky bastard, Daniel said, shaking his head. It's not all cupcakes and puppies, Brian retorted. If I don't make significant progress by tomorrow, I lose project rights. Not only do I have to stop working on it, it goes to somebody else. What a load of bullshit! So why didn't you tell me? And why didn't you want to tell me? This is like bragging rights for a year if you pull it off. Yeah, an egg all over my face for a year if I don't. Besides, I'm not supposed to talk about it at all. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What is it? What part of I'm not supposed to talk about it at all went over your head? Brian demanded, disgruntled. Oh, come on, since when were rules and regulations important to you? Daniel coaxed. Brian did not smile at him. Since this project. I'm really sorry, Daniel, I really can't talk about it. I could lose my job. Taken aback, Daniel replied, Okay, wow, heavy stuff. I won't ask about it then. Brian pinched the bridge of his nose and sighed. Thanks, he said. You know, I would tell you if I could. Of course. I just can't. Yeah, no, I get it. It's cool. Forget I ever asked. Hey, food's here. Daniel. Brian was staring intently at him, even as the server placed their plastic basketed food in front of them. What? Said Daniel, picking up a falafel and examining it closely. Swordfish. But the O is a 0. What? He looked up at Brian, but the purple-haired coder was already digging into his food. What's swordfish? Man, this stuff is good! Brian exclaimed, his mouth full of falafel. Tell Her Highness it gets my seal of approval. Yeah, I'm sure that'll mean the world to her, Daniel intoned. His insides had started to feel fluttery again, and the envelope was burning a hole in his pocket. He resolved to open it the very first moment he was alone. Woo! 1 of 3. Done again. So hopefully the sound worked better on that one. Um, hopefully you guys really enjoyed that as the plot continues to thicken, and things continue to happen, and Brian continues to be cool. Um, so yeah, just let me know if you want me to keep reading, because I want to keep reading, but I also don't want to overstay my welcome on this story. And if people get tired of it, I don't want to keep reading it when I could be reading other things that other people would enjoy more. So let me know if you want more of this story. Let me know if you want a different story. So far, people have been really excited about this, and that's super cool, and I'm super happy. But yeah, let me know, and hopefully I will see you guys next time. So, bye!